At no level of basketball could this ever be a technical foul on Kelsey Mitchell. Oh, A'ja Wilson's on the court. That changes everything. So if A'ja Wilson fouls you on a layup, you're going to get a technical.
The Las Vegas Aces came out throwing everything but clean basketball. Flying elbows, dramatic flops, refs swallowing their whistles. It was all part of the show. Vegas thought rough tactics would shake Indiana, but the Fever didn't flinch. Every shove from A'ja Wilson, every cheap trick to break their rhythm was answered with speed, toughness, and a punch right back. And when Kelsey Mitchell started sinking cold-blooded shots that silenced the arena, it wasn't just points on the board, it was payback. This wasn't only about taking a win, it was about exposing Vegas's dirty blueprint and turning their swagger against them. Stick around, because you'll want to hear exactly what Kelsey Mitchell had to say after Indiana was targeted all night by Wilson's antics. Drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about A'ja Wilson and the WNBA officiating? Let's get into it.
It was supposed to be a night all about A'ja Wilson's legacy. She made history before the ball even tipped, but the game that followed reminded the Aces how tough this playoff run will be.
The Indiana Fever have pulled off the upset, the 6th seed, beating Vegas 89-73.
Just hours before tip-off, all eyes in Las Vegas were locked on A'ja Wilson as she hoisted her MVP trophy. The spotlight was supposed to shine on dominance, on celebration, on a reminder of who owns this league. But by the time the final buzzer sounded, that golden award felt less like a crown and more like a distraction. What was meant to showcase the Aces' power ended up exposing cracks in their armor. From the opening quarter, the game they thought would be routine quickly turned into a battle they couldn't control.
And the Las Vegas Aces lose game 1 on their home court to the Indiana Fever, 89-73. The Indiana Fever were in control of this game from start to finish. There was a small little patch there in the third quarter. We started saying, are the Aces gonna come back? But Kelsey Mitchell and Odyssey Sims said, no, they're not going to come back, not at all.
Going into this matchup, the storyline felt predetermined. The media had already crowned Las Vegas untouchable, heavy favorites, while Indiana was treated as nothing more than background filler. Analysts dismissed the Fever entirely, pointing straight to the injury list. Caitlin Clark sidelined, Sophie Cunningham out, Sydney Colson unavailable, and the absences kept stacking. 6 players down, and most commentators acted like the game was over before it began. Vegas carried the banners, the rings, the so-called championship pedigree. Indiana written off. Even Becky Hammond fed into that arrogance, telling reporters the Fever still hadn't seen the real Aces. In plain English, this was expected to be a demolition.
Indiana dropped 2 of the 3 games to them this year, but you haven't seen them since late July. What excites you about that matchup?
That they haven't seen the real Aces yet. They caught us when we were at a bit in turmoil. Not only that, they whooped us one of those stretches. So, you know what, we'll buckle in, hone in where we can, and
Here's the twist. While Vegas got drunk on its own hype, Indiana was brushed aside like an afterthought. Most analysts barely said their name, except as the opponent on the schedule. But that kind of disrespect, it played right into the Fever's hands. When nobody believes in you, there's no weight, no pressure. You can just play. And from the very first possession, that freedom was stamped all over Indiana's game.
Court, the Fever crashed the party. Kelsey Mitchell dropped a playoff career-high 34 points to spoil the night with an 89-73 win.
in the second half, I just felt like our physicality and our pursuit was not there. Like, we died on screens. You have to have second and third efforts. Even if you know you might be beat, you still have to try hard to get back into the play, and I don't think we tried hard in that category.
Indiana didn't back down. They pushed the pace, moved the ball with precision, and outplayed the so-called untouchable back-to-back champions. The Aces, despite all the bravado, looked sluggish. They were the ones second-guessing, the ones hesitating. Suddenly, the pressure wasn't weighing on the Fever, it was crushing Vegas. The team with the rings, the team everyone, said would roll, now staring at an opponent that simply refused to fold. Funny how fast confidence turns into desperation when the underdog doesn't crack. By the end of the night, the storyline had flipped on its head, and here's the number that shook everyone. 72% of teams who win Game 1 in a best-of-5 go on to take the series. This wasn't just an upset, it was a statement, and it happened right in the Aces' own house.
And you better not blank on the miss, little bitch. You might get ranked. Shot back. Let it go. Right, go. What is fly for the somebody? Die. Gang. You don't want to fight no hitter? No. Nigga, I'ma shoot you in the face.
The real turning point came when Indiana refused to break. Once the Fever made it clear they weren't backing down, Vegas ditched discipline and slipped into something much uglier. The shift was obvious. The Aces stopped trusting their offense, stopped running their smooth sets, and instead leaned on shoving, trash talk, and cheap shortcuts. What was supposed to be a celebration of dominance quickly unraveled into pure desperation.
Hall was getting pushed all game. Look at that. Like elbowed, pushed, but guess who fell? That's an illegal screen. She leans into Lexi Hall, pushes her. Look at this. Pushes Lexi Hall down. Like, I can't take this crap. I'm sick of watching it over and over. That's a moving screen. And then pushes her again. Look at that. You can't do that. They didn't call any. This is the only one they called a foul. She straight pushed Kelsey Mitchell into A'ja Wilson.
And at the center of Vegas's unraveling was none other than A'ja Wilson. Instead of setting the tone with her talent, she resorted to elbows and theatrics. Off the ball, she threw forearms. After whistles, she leaned into Fever players. During transitions where defense wasn't even in play, she shoved just to make contact. And the flopping? Almost laughable, dropping to the floor like she'd been leveled by a truck, while replays showed nothing more than a brush of contact. At one point, she even locked an opponent's arm, pulled herself down, and tried to sell it like she was the victim. That wasn't dominance. Those were desperation moves from a star who could feel control slipping away.
And then this pathetic foul to start the game off with. But ball never lies. I love when karma happens. Yeah, miss your free throw. And then here we go. Check this out. A foul. Look at this. When she swings her elbows on Powers. And Powers just holding her ground. But it's a foul. Let's go through this. This is A'ja Wilson. I'm so big and bad. No, you didn't get touched. It wasn't that cool. You made a layup.
Her teammates followed right behind her lead. Jackie Young threw her hips like she was setting blocks in football, not basketball. Off-ball defenders buried shoulders and elbows into Fever players who never even saw it coming, disguised as physical play. The intent was crystal clear. Break Indiana's flow, drag the game into chaos. But instead of shaking the Fever, it only lit a fire under them.
Then Aaliyah Boston swings her elbows around and makes a shot, but no, she can't do it. She's a Fever, an Indiana Fever. She said, that's a flop. That's what Caitlin said. Here we go. A'ja Wilson. Look at her trying to flop to get a call. Nobody touch you. And this is the biggest bullcrap of the game. So Kelsey Mitchell goes in for a layup. A'ja Wilson shows them their lip, so they review it. Ever see an Indiana Fever player get a review when they're called for a foul and they zoom in with a microscope and call it technical? They called it technical on Kelsey Mitchell.
Indiana thrived on every cheap shot thrown their way. Each hard foul didn't shake their focus, it sharpened it. Kelsey Mitchell called for the ball with even more fire, drilling daggers that silenced the Vegas crowd. Odyssey Sims hounded her matchup on defense like everything was on the line. Inside, Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner held down the paint with toughness and discipline, never retaliating but never backing off either. For a roster everyone wrote off just hours earlier, that fight became fuel. And here's the irony. The Aces, with their championships, All-Stars, Olympians, and an MVP freshly crowned, were supposed to be the picture of composure. Instead, they were the ones unraveling. Their antics told the real story. They weren't winning on skill, they were grasping at shortcuts. And when swagger crumbles into flops and shoves, the mask comes off. Vegas wasn't in control. They were desperate.
Look at that foul they called for. Yeah, saved her. That's some bullcrap. I love Aaliyah Boston. Great job today playing defense. Look at that. Another foul. Bailed out by the refs. I get pissed off. This is the worst one. They call this a jump ball. How is that a jump ball? Nobody even had possession. Aaliyah Boston, that's anything is over the back. Not a jump ball.
Indiana completely flipped the script. The harder Vegas tried to bully, the stronger the Fever became. The swagger shifted to Kelsey Mitchell and the rest of the roster, who stood their ground without a hint of fear. And in the end, the cheap shots meant to intimidate only exposed the Aces' weakness. Vegas came in looking for a statement win, and they got one, just not the kind they imagined. Once it was clear Indiana wouldn't crack, the Aces abandoned basketball and tried to turn it into a street fight. They threw shoves in the lane, sent bodies crashing to the floor, and flopped so theatrically the crowd could only roll its eyes. The truth was obvious. The second the scoreboard stopped tilting their way, Vegas turned to desperation. But instead of breaking, Indiana fed off it. Missing 6 players, the Fever treated every hit as fuel. Each dirty tactic lit another spark, and that fire grew into something the Aces simply couldn't contain.
A ditch! Who on the Las Vegas Aces is going to try to stop Kelsey Mitchell? Because from what I just saw, they had no answer for her. Kirsten Bell, line right up, smacked. Jackie Young, step right up, torched. Chelsea Gray, torched. Jewel Lloyd, torched. Nobody could hang with Kelsey Mitchell as she goes off.
No one embodied Indiana's fight more than Kelsey Mitchell. She didn't just respond to the Aces' antics, she made them pay for it. Her 34-point masterpiece was a showcase in poise and precision. No matter how much contact she absorbed, she sliced through the defense with fearless drives and buried jumper after jumper without blinking. Vegas could talk trash, throw bumps on screens, even shove her after the whistle, but Mitchell answered with buckets. Every shot carried the same message. The Aces might win the side battles, but Mitchell was owning the game. And for all the MVP trophies stacked on Vegas' shelf, not one of their stars came close to the night she delivered.
Time keeping the pivot foot alive and going strong side for Wilson.
Mitchell this time finds a lane to the basket. Inside to Turner, nice look from Mitchell, which follows 5 Eastern time on ESPN. Mitchell. Lot of arc on that and a couple of bounces.
Mitchell wasn't carrying the fight alone. Odyssey Sims looked like she'd been waiting her whole career for this moment. Every drive came with fearless intent. Every defensive stand threw Vegas off balance. But it wasn't just her stat line. It was her leadership that shined. She controlled the tempo, slowing things down when the Aces tried to drag Indiana into chaos, then speeding it up at just the right moments to cut them apart. Her presence gave the Fever the composure of a veteran playoff squad. Meanwhile, Vegas, the reigning 2-time champs, were the ones unraveling under the weight of the spotlight.
Anticipation there by Brianna Turner. She's been on a couple WNBA all defensive teams, and she has really been key for them on that end of the floor in these playoffs.
Sims, yet again.
That's a tough matchup.
Which follows 5 Eastern time on ESPN. Mitchell. Lot of arc on that and a couple in the regular season in Asia. In the entire league. And Sims, they gave her just that space and she took.
Natasha Howard and Brianna Turner were just as critical in the paint, battling Aja Wilson and the rest of Vegas' front court. They never backed down. They held their ground, rotated with discipline, and turned every post touch into a fight. It wasn't about highlight reel blocks or flashy plays. It was about stripping away comfort. The Aces, so accustomed to easy looks inside, suddenly found themselves slogging through mud. Every possession was a grind, and the harder Vegas forced it, the worse their offense looked. And then there was Lexi Hull. She didn't need to drop 30 points to change the game. Her defense did that. Assigned to shadow Jackie Young, she put on a masterclass. Every shot Young put up was contested. Every cut met resistance. Every possession drained her energy. Hull's plus 24 plus minus wasn't just a number. It was the stamp of how suffocating she had been. The bruises she absorbed, the shoves she battled through, the dives onto the hardwood. Those moments didn't just lift her teammates. They erased the impact of a star Vegas was counting on.
Tipped by Sims, so 9 seconds to shoot.
Hull's done a nice job on Jackie Young early in this game. Jackie likes to go north to south. She's made her play east to west, has not given her an angle to the bucket or to the rim.
And that was one of the things that was talked about to make Jackie move laterally. She's so dangerous. They got to hurry. Kelsey gets it inside to Young. Rebound.
Indiana didn't just survive the Aces' attempt to turn the game into a brawl. They flat out outclassed them. They absorbed every cheap shot, every dirty tactic, and still walked away composed and victorious. But the most devastating blow didn't come from Mitchell's daggers or Sims' steady hand. It came from Aaliyah Boston, who took the league's MVP and turned her night into pure frustration. The irony was impossible to miss. Just hours earlier, Aja Wilson had been celebrated on her home floor, raising the MVP trophy in front of a roaring crowd. But once the ball was tipped, that crown became a burden. Every post-up was met by Boston already in position, holding her ground and forcing collisions. Every shot attempt smothered. Every drop step turned into a test of strength. Wilson didn't just miss, she labored. 6 makes on 22 attempts. That wasn't dominance. That was frustration, exposed for all to see.
They don't want to talk about it. Yeah, her missing layup after layup after layup. They want to talk about Caitlin Clark missing a 3-pointer from half court while she got people falling into her legs. But nobody wants to talk about A'ja Wilson looking like Angel Reese, missing point-blank layups all game long. In a playoff game, 6 for 20.
And it wasn't just Aaliyah Boston. Nalissa Smith and Kelsey Mitchell closed ranks, creating a defensive wall that suffocated the Aces superstar. What usually looks like effortless spins and smooth finishes from Aja Wilson turned into contested fadeaways and desperate pleas for whistles. Possession after possession, the film told the same story. Indiana's defense was ready, and Wilson had no solutions. The difference between stars was striking. Boston remained composed, sticking to her fundamentals and executing with poise. Wilson, on the other hand, unraveled, flopping for calls, jawing at the refs, and forcing bad shots. One carried herself like a leader built for the moment. The other looked weighed down by her own headlines.
Hudson Hall had that great steal to seal the win against Atlanta. A great start for Aaliyah Boston.
Definitely the man slasher.
Boston and Wilson, 2 former South Carolina players. A'ja can't find the bottom of the net.
5'11". Odyssey Sims and Kelsey Mitchell 5'8".
Boston up, under, and in.
Really having her battle.
A'ja.
Even Becky Hammon, normally quick to counter with sharp adjustments, looked shaken. Instead of giving Indiana credit for their flawless execution, she dismissed it as simply missed opportunities. But deep down, everyone knew the truth. Aaliyah Boston had owned her MVP. Hammon's refusal to admit it only made Indiana's statement louder. The champs had been exposed. The irony couldn't have been scripted better. That same afternoon, A'ja Wilson was celebrated as the league's most valuable player. By nightfall, she was walking off her own floor humbled. The cheers no longer for her, but for the Fever, who had turned the night upside down. Inside Indiana's locker room, the atmosphere was electric. This wasn't just a win, it was a takeover. And when Kelsey Mitchell finally spoke, bruised but unbroken, her words carried the weight of a team that had just seized the narrative.
Going into this one, the Aces had only lost twice in 50 days, Kelsey. What did you guys make of all the chatter going into this series that they were the favorites?
You kind of just respect their game. They have the best player in the world on their team. They have unbelievable guards, so you have to respect who they are. Unbelievable PG, and so we know what they bring to the table as far as their resume and everything they've done throughout the course of the season. And you have to respect that. And you just hope that, 50-50, it follow a certain way, and you like to think that, your effort and your ability to show up and just compete can, make you have a win.
After just one game, the numbers already lean Indiana's way. In a best of 5, history says 72% of teams that take game 1 move on. It's not a promise, but it's a blueprint, and right now, the Fever are following it perfectly. For Las Vegas, the sting was brutal. This was a team that had stormed into the series with 18 wins in their last 19 contests. They had the momentum, the confidence, and home court on their side. Yet in a single night, all of that unraveled. Their MVP was neutralized, their offense stalled, and the aura of invincibility they carried evaporated on their own floor.
The main thing, and that is us playing to a standard of basketball that we want to have as an Indiana Fever organization and franchise. We've got to keep our layers, the outside, the people in our building, and the people in our locker room. And the thing I'm just so proud of with this group is it doesn't matter who's on the floor, it doesn't matter who's on our roster. They give each other the freedom to be themselves. They empower one another to be themselves and to be the best version of themselves. And every time we've had a change, every time we've brought someone in, every time we've had rotational changes, they're for each other. They live the we over the me. And when you have that, it just gives you opportunities to do really special things.
Now Vegas faces game 2 with everything on the line. One more loss at home, and they'd be heading to Indianapolis staring elimination in the face. Make no mistake, adjustments are coming. Expect Jackie Young to shadow Kelsey Mitchell like a second skin, desperate to stop another scoring eruption. Expect A'ja Wilson to get easier touches closer to the basket. Expect Vegas to slow the tempo, grind the game down, and try to test Indiana's patience. But here's the difference. The weight isn't on the Fever anymore. It's squarely on the champs. Indiana is playing free, with confidence spreading through every huddle. Stephanie White has them believing, and that belief is infectious. The veterans are calm, the young stars are fearless, and even the sideline players are locked in, pumping life into the team from the bench. This isn't a group just trying to hang on. The Fever look like a team ready to flip the entire WNBA storyline on its head.
Feel about the performance, the urgency, and the response you had when they made a couple runs late?
Yeah, I feel good. I mean, our group has seen it all. We wanted to come in and be the aggressor right away to make sure that we were dictating on the defensive end and we were dictating from a pace standpoint. They're champions for a reason. We knew that they were going to make runs. They made a big one in the third, and we responded with a big one. I'm proud of our team. It's one game. It's a long series, so we got to keep the main thing. But to come in here and to be able to steal this one was big for us.
The symbolism couldn't have been clearer. On the very day A'ja Wilson was celebrated as the face of the league, she was humbled on her own floor. And at the same time, the Indiana Fever, a team written off by almost everyone, snatched their first semifinal win in more than 10 years. This wasn't just an upset, it felt like a shift in power. Game 1 didn't look like luck, it looked like a plan. A team with no fear, no pressure, and nothing to lose played smarter, tougher, and together. And in doing so, they showed the two-time champs they're no longer untouchable. If Indiana brings that same fight in game 2, Vegas could be staring at a meltdown no MVP trophy can disguise. The Fever didn't just grab a win, they stripped the Aces of their confidence, their home court advantage, and their aura of invincibility. Now the real question isn't whether Indiana belongs, it's whether Vegas has enough left to survive.